Y'all not going to believe this. I had a date. Now, I have talked to this man several times on the phone, and I met him. Of course, I met him on a dating app. And his name's Ralph, but absolutely fabulous guy. I mean, he's just got his act together. Just an adult, responsible, independent gentleman, and he's quite handsome. So I have texted with him several times. We've shared phone numbers from the dating app. And we finally agreed on a date and when we were going to go. So the other night we go. And I was so excited because I've been on such bad dates lately. And I just thought, oh, I've got high hopes for this fella. So we get there. We decide we're going to meet at the steakhouse, the Longhorn Steakhouse. So we get to the Longhorn Steakhouse, and I'm excited because I know there's a steakhouse, but I really like their salmon. So anyway, we get there. I get there. And he has texted me and said that he's inside. They gave him one of those little red beeper things to wait for our table. And then he texted me again. Just as I pulled in the parking lot, he texted me again and said, the lady came and got me. She's taking me to my booth, but I've shown her your picture, and she's going to collect you at the door. I hope that's okay. And I put back K, just not okay, just K in the text and sent back. So I got pulled in the parking lot. And I parked, I got out, I went to the front door, and the young girl, knew me right away. She said, are you Miss Dolly? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, your guest is in here waiting for you. I said, oh, okay. So she walked me back there to the booth. Now, this man, he is 55. Now, I am also 55. So I thought this is good. And he's very handsome in his photo. So this man popped up out of the booth. And he greeted me, and he shook my hand and kind of gave me a half a hug. And I said, oh, that's lovely. And I thought, my date apparently has brought his dad. So I said, oh, hello. I said, and what is your name? He said, my name is Ralph. And so I thought, oh, well, my date is a junior. I said, oh, okay. Well, fabulous. I said, well, very nice to meet you. I said, very nice to meet you. And I said his last name. And he said, yeah. And so we sat down and we sat in the booth and we sat there for a few minutes. He started telling me some stuff about Longhorn Steakhouse, that they have a great steak, that this one is the best one, and that's the one he prefers, but that I should get anything that I'd like on the menu. And I thought, well, that's a nice change. But I'm still waiting for my date to arrive, his son. Because this gentleman is about 85 and my date is 55. And they look almost identical, but that happens a lot in families. I mean, heck, one of my daughters looks just like me. So I thought, well, okay. So we sat there for a few minutes and he never, and he's telling me about the menu and what things he likes best. And finally I said, sir, I said, when will Ralph be here? He said, huh? I said, Ralph, your son, my date this evening. He said, oh, I'm Ralph. And he looked so sad and disappointed. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm confused. And so he was trying to tell me something, but now I'm scrambling for my phone. So I got my phone out of my purse and I pulled it up and I said, Ralph. He said, oh, that picture was taken 25 years ago. He said, that was my retirement party. I said, well, this profile says that you're 55. Well, I was when that picture was taken. I said, I'll be damned. So I sat there. I said, hon, so now I'm talking to him very sweet because this is a little old man, but he's darling and certainly not my date, but he's darling. And I said, sir, I thought that you were 55. He said, well, I was in that photo. I said, I understand, but sir, you're not 55 today. Oh no, he said, I'm 85. And I said, okay. And so I just kind of shook my head. And I wasn't at this point convinced if he was trying to trick me or he really put 55 because that's the age of the photo. And I wasn't 100% sure that he understood that about the dating app, that it made me believe that he was 55 years old. And so the more he talked, then I thought, wait a minute, you have to put your birth date in there. You don't put an age, you put your birthday in there. So this man certainly had to have done the math and gone back to make that say that he was 55. So by now we have ordered our drink, and I did order a drink, not a tea. And I said, that is on the table. The girl has already come to take our order, and we have. And I thought, well, I'm here now. And so I said, so we ordered, and he was fabulous company. He really was. And had he been 55, I'd have dated him. Heck, I might even made him my boyfriend. But he wasn't 55. He was 85. And a bit longer into this conversation and this dinner, and I'm actually enjoying my conversation with him. But honey, he's 85. And I said, Ralph, darling, I said, you realize that you put that, yes, he said, but you wouldn't have gone out with me on this date. And I said, no, I probably wouldn't have. And he said, but if you don't mind, he said, I'd like to just go ahead and finish and have a nice meal with you, and maybe another time you'll go out to dinner with me again. I just couldn't even say no to the man. He was just darling. And I said, Ralph, hon, you realize that I really am not interested in dating to someone with such an age gap. And he said, I know, he said, and it was wrong of me to do that. I said, so you realize that you intentionally did that? He said, I did. He said, but I'm hoping you won't be too mad. I said, well, I'm not mad. I'm just very surprised. And I said, but I am actually enjoying my company, your company. I am enjoying our conversation. So he started laughing. He said, I thought I'd win you over with my charm. I said, Ralph, you are very charming, but you do recognize that this is not going to go anywhere. And he said, I do. He said, but I'm still having a good time tonight. And I said, yeah, okay, let's just have us a good time tonight. So I felt like we were at a clear understanding, even though I gotten tricked a little bit, a whole bunch of years I got tricked. But I did enjoy his company. But when I walked in there and I thought, well, my date has brought his dad. And I really didn't know. I really didn't, because the age gap was so huge. I thought, surely this is his dad. But it wasn't. It was him. And he had intentionally scrolled back and changed that date of birth. And well, there I was, but I did meet a fabulous guy who I enjoyed talking to, who admittedly tricked me in his age, but I still did have a nice time. I still did enjoy his company. So even though that wasn't a connection, I still had a nice time on my first date with Ralph.